It is Monday. RawMikeRichards.com. Broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto. 234 King Street East out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Coming up today, a legend from the Canadian Football League. Jerry Organ. Remember that? Boy, he was on some great teams. What was it like playing with what I always would say the great Tommy Clements? Tom Clements was one of my all-time favorite guys. Still is. Also take a look at the magic of the PGA Championship. I say that people are referring to this as it really was a win for Tiger. No, it wasn't. Like, you got to win. I get why people want to say that, and it's why the argument about is he going to win again. Well, Brooks Koepka was going to make sure that he was the only one that was going to win. So that's like saying, well, I got a bogey, but because of the shots I made, I think it really felt like a birdie. Put me down for 3. Golf doesn't work like that.
Well, I've played with people like that.
Yeah, well, I think we both have. But I'm telling you, that is why it's difficult to win currently in the PGA on all the tournaments, simply because there are 10 guys on any given moment who can win the thing. Plus, they're not afraid of Tiger. They're not afraid of Tiger. They're beyond the Tiger era or the Tiger influence or the Tiger effect. You have to win in order for that to take place, and I just don't see it. Now, did it make for an interesting Sunday, Dave? Oh, totally.
Yeah, nice round.
I mean, I'm looking at him going, this is pretty interesting stuff. We're sitting there with my father-in-law, and we're sort of watching the shots that he makes and or sometimes not make, and it made for tremendous drama. Does that mean do I believe that the returns on the ratings, Dave, or when they come out probably at some point today, did the numbers go up? Oh, I'm sure they went way up. That is the Tiger effect. The fact that when he is in contention, it is of news, simply because he still will go down as one of the greatest golfers of all time. And in his era, I don't think I can even almost compare an athlete. I guess you'd have to go to Roger Federer, I guess, in his kind of domination. But I just don't know if we'll ever see anything like what Tiger did. But you still have to win in order for someone to actually say, Tiger's back. Tiger had a good round. Tiger had a good tournament.
And that hasn't happened. The thing that was most impressive is 4 consecutive rounds of 70 or under. Does this mean something happens next year? Well, guess what? The numbers are all over the place for the 2019 Masters, and Tiger Woods is part of that top 5, top 10 because of what he did yesterday. Is that an overreaction? Absolutely it is, because he may not even play that. He may get injured. Something might happen. It's a massive overreaction. There is no value betting on Tiger Woods to win anything next year, let alone a Masters.
Yeah. It's a great story, and if you want to call it feel good for a guy that has been out of it because his golf game has been so inconsistent. As Dave just mentioned, the biggest thing about that tournament on the weekend was 4 consistent rounds, which is great. If you're a no-name or someone that has been out of the top 10 or someone like, I don't know, Ricky Fowler, like who am I comparing this to? But to say that Tiger is back, Tiger had a consistent, tournament, and that's it. Koepka just looked like he was in complete control the whole time. I don't know if he's a huge big guy. Like, I can't tell. I mean, it was just
6 foot even. So not
6,
really.
But he looks big.
Yeah, he does. I know.
Of course,
he
the shirt's a little
across as tall.
Well, he's got a little bit of the what do they call the Jersey Shore kind of shirts on. Like, would you wear a shirt that tight?
No.
Like, it was a little awkward to me.
Well, you know what? When you shop at the Baby Gap, that's what you got. And I've been to the Baby Gap plenty of times.
I'm sure you have. But congratulations to Brooks Koepka. Again, but he, unlike days gone by, what I think is really interesting about these guys, Dave, and you can appreciate this. On their drives in the tee box, unlike the Ernie Els days where there was tempo and a nice, it was almost majestic the way they go full on Bastel in the tee box, and they go after that thing.
Yeah,
like they really do.
Yeah, swing out of your shoes.
Yeah.
That's the way I like to do it. Next year's Masters, Jordan Spieth the favorite at 10-1. Tiger and Rory at 11-1.
Stupid. It's
are
just
tied for second.
I don't understand.
Even
that.
ahead of Dustin Johnson, ahead of Justin Thomas, ahead of Ricky, John Rahm, Justin Rose, Jason Day. All these players will do significantly better than Tiger Woods on the long haul of things. The Tiger effect is nice, and I think it's going to come up and it's going to bite its head once in a while. What he did this weekend, Mike, tells me that he will win a tournament. He'll win the Fry's. He'll win the Honda, maybe the Buick, maybe something like that. Great. He's not winning a Masters.
No. And the other thing it tells you is he's got relative health.
Yes.
I mean, he's healthy.
How long can that last,
Well,
though?
again, when you start talking about a year from now he's another year older. And very rarely do people get stronger and better. Strength coming back. It's really not.
Except Barry Bonds.
Yeah. Well, Barry Bonds, yeah, whose head also somehow continued to get bigger,
which is weird.
I wonder how that happened. You're watching RawMikeRichards.com or listening on the podcast, whether it's iTunes, Stitched In, Google Play, whatever you got going on. We appreciate it. We're going to talk to Jerry Organ, who was part of some of the great CFL teams and some really incredible moments, including one we'll bring up that they lost, the one in the Big O, where Edmonton was so heavily favored. Condredge Holloway was the quarterback, and at the half, Ottawa was winning.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until the very late stages where I think it probably was a Dave Cutler field goal or something. But I got to tell you, that was of that era where there were some just legendary names, and we'll certainly talk about them with Jerry Organ, who was kicker and receiver. I mean, this is the day where the guys did a bunch of stuff. Wally Buono, here's one you don't see often. Linebacker, punter.
That is not a very good. That's not a familiar combo. You're right.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, there was back in those days, Randy Rhino. Remember those names?
Mm-hmm.
That was that era too. So we'll talk about that. And speaking of golf, there's so many guys that were considered to be favorites. Some people like the Cinderella story. Well, when it comes to the Cinderella story, if we're talking about the PGA Championship, the guy that I liked, the guy that I thought would really pull through and didn't, was this guy.
What an incredible Cinderella story. This unknown comes out of nowhere to lead the pack. At Augusta, he's on his final hole. He's about 455 yards away. He's going to hit about a 2-iron, I think. Well, he got all of that. The crowd is standing on its feet here at Augusta. The normally reserved Augusta crowd going wild. For this young Cinderella, who's come out of nowhere, he's got about 350 yards left. He's going to hit about a 5-iron, I expect, don't you think? He's got a beautiful backswing. He got all of that one. He's got to be pleased with that. The crowd is just on its feet here. He's a Cinderella boy. Tears in his eyes, I guess, as he lines up this last shot. He's got about 195 yards left, and looks like he's got about an 8-iron. This crowd has gone deadly silent. Cinderella story, out of nowhere. A former greenskeeper now about to become the Masters champion. It looks like a miracle. It's in the hole! It's in the hole!
Hey, young fella, I was hoping to squeeze in 9 holes before this rain starts.
Certainly, Your Eminency.
Take my bag, huh?
Certainly, Your Magnificence.
Okay, come on, chop chop. Let's go.
Oh, one of the most famous scenes, I think, Dave, if people are on a golf course and they start imitating someone, it's usually that.
It's pretty good play-by-play, too.
Yeah.
It's
Cinderella boy.
Something that sadly missed in today's game.
Yeah. What was he, 500 or something? Yeah, he pulls out was it 4-iron or whatever? That one of the all-time classics. Let's face it, when it comes to golf films, has there been a serious one that you liked?
Not really, no.
Was it Bobby Jones? It was the Bobby Jones story? Bobby Jones story, I think, was pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't see the one with
Will Smith.
Will Smith,
Bagger Vance.
the caddy one.
Yeah, and Tin Cup.
Tin Cup golfers hate.
You know what? I
don't hate it. I don't
hate it. I don't mind it.
No, I don't mind it either.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
But see, the hardcore. It's like when you talk NASCAR and then you bring up Thunder.
You're not talking about
the Tom Cruise one.
Tom Cruise one. Yeah, I know.
They lose their mind.
Yeah.
I go, but you know when they're doing the radio thing with the guys? They're like, oh yeah, that was bang on. No, it wasn't. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. You're going to be thrilled to know that Johnny Manziel, I believe, is the next great quarterback.
Tell me more about this.
If he could just get on a great team. But if we're looking at the difference from, let's call his week 1 to week 2, he got some protection.
Yep.
And guess what? The defense made some plays.
Showed up.
They actually were able to make some stops and get some turnovers, which was the key in that first half. So, again, if I'm breaking down what I saw from Johnny Manziel, he does have the ability to move the ball. I saw some throws that were some really nice, accurate throws. Does he take off and run? Yep. Does he always take the hook slide? Well, he got caught kind of a half and half one, which actually brought up a penalty because I think the Ottawa player kind of got caught halfway in between. I think that's why they threw you kind of have to, but it was a little strange kind of when you looked at it. But the other thing is, in gaining confidence, you can see, quite honestly, and I'm not talking about the NFL. So let's put that conversation to the side, David. I'm not looking at this as an audition to go to the NFL. I'm looking at this. Does he have the ability to play in the Canadian Football League? He does. It's just that his team isn't very good, but they sure made it hard on Ottawa. So if we're looking once again at the progress of Johnny Manziel, I got to give him full marks for this one. I mean, he kept it. My God, it went down the last 20 seconds. And as I said, I think he sees the field. I think he's starting to feel like he's starting to understand and read the defenses, and I think it showed. Property of TSN and Bell Media, Inc. Here is the progress of one Johnny Manziel.
He's able to get outside with his launch point.
Back in second and long, 4 receivers to the field. And Manziel with lots of time got Ernest Jackson up at the 45-yard line. Big play for Manziel.
It's called protection, Dave, and he got some.
First down. Coughed it up on each of their first 2 possessions tonight. Goes sidearm. Manziel finds Ernest Jackson loose. And this is a terrific sign for Montreal that they're finally getting the ball in the hands of a former Eastern MOP, Ernest Jackson.
Yeah, you think back to that.
And also on this play, Dave, if I'm looking specifically at Johnny Manziel, so what does he do that I recognize that he's starting to understand? Well, it's a little bit of the guy coming off the edge like that, throws the ball, not full sidearm, but he's seeing the field, and that to me is paramount. I don't care what your tools are, you got to be able to see the field, and I think he does.
Right, we can delay things if they need more time to get pretty. First down, Manziel throws in the flat, and B.J. Cunningham comes up with it. Jonathan Rose in the neighborhood. Let's get back to the news of the moment. Manziel, nice fake, getting chased by Howell, running away from Howell, and
see, there's the flag. As I said, it was kind of a half slide, Dave, and the guy didn't know what to do. You got to throw the flag, but hey, he made a play. That's the idea.
Major foul, unnecessary roughness, Ottawa number 21, 15-yard penalty enforced from the end of the run, and a first down for Montreal.
So they marched it to the 30-yard line. Time for Manziel, and the crosser for Ernest Jackson.
See that crossing route, Dave? I like the fact that he made that throw. About a month ago, he wasn't making the underneath stuff.
To the red zone, another quarterback keeper, Johnny Manziel, to the goal line, and a ball comes loose right before he got in there. Ruling touchdown, Alouettes. Who ends up on it?
No, he got rocked. He got hit hard.
Well, what a drive for Johnny Manziel.
Rolling on the field was Montreal number 2, fumbled the football prior to crossing the line. Then Montreal recovered the football in.
This hit here.
Touchdown, Montreal.
Jeez.
So the ball out before he crossed the line.
And he was kind of down and out.
And you can see the Alouette at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah, I found myself watching Johnny Manziel more because he took a hard shot to the head from Jonathan Rose, who stepped up in support.
But it does count as a touchdown, Dave. I take a look at it, and I just see a lot of, the way I would put it is recognition. A recognition of what the defense is doing, a recognition of what he's been given, and therefore not throwing into bad situations. So the degree of improvement from week 1 to 2 on a very bad team, I thought was excellent.
Yeah, 16 of 26, 168 yards. Looked like he was a little more poised. I like the way they also used play action to his advantage to buy him a little more time. He's going to get better. He's not going to lead this team to a Grey Cup championship, and there will be help coming soon. I have a sneaky suspicion that Duron Carter will be a Montreal Alouette sometime in the next couple of days. Saskatchewan's loss is Montreal's gain, but then you have another character in the locker room that already has a couple of them, so we'll see. But they also are going to have another talent, which is what this team needs. They need to be surrounded by talent because this is the worst team in the CFL by far. So they need these players.
Totally. I just realized, Russell, you may need just to show the John Travolta's actually going to, we're waiting for him to come into the studio. So he's got apparently some quiz for you, a Western Canadian, in fact, a Calgary quiz on how well you know that town, that city, some of the sporting events.
Lived there for a couple of years. Had a really good run there. I know I was.
What part of town did you live in?
Southwest.
Oh, you were in the Southwest.
Yeah, I was just off of 17th. Not in the mile, but walking distance to the mile.
Dirty David.
Yeah,
Dirty David.
You know what? That's the way to do it. You know, you can walk and then leave at any time and still make it home fairly certain. Let's bring him in right now, actually.
Are we able to bring him in now? We'll.
Because he's.
Okay.
No,
his limousine is still apparently still getting out of the limousine.
Yeah, he's sure taking his time.
Looking at other CFL news, you know what, the Winnipeg Hamilton game kind of played out the way that you predicted on Sports Interaction, to be honest.
Yeah, you know what? The thing that's disappointing to me is Matt Nichols hasn't quite found his thing yet. He hasn't passed for more than 260 yards in a game. Another decent game as far as the offense is concerned, but his numbers, $180 throwing, and this guy was known to really light it up. This guy, I thought at the start of the year might be a most valuable player option, but he hasn't quite found his groove with the Bombers. Bombers are winning, though, and they knock off Hamilton. They are hosting Ottawa next week.
Well, John just knocked over the hockey stick in the back. So if we go over to Dave Bastelum, I think, why don't you bring him in?
Absolutely. Let's bring John Travolta to the studios. First time on Raw Mike Riches. John, it's really good to talk to you. What brings you by on this Monday morning, and how come you don't come more often?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's amazing to be here. And I will tell you this, that in September, you have, is it called TITS?
TIFF.
Oh, right.
TIFF.
And I'm going to be here for that. And I'm very excited about the movies. I'm going to release an independent movie that I made on flying jets.
Flying jets?
Yeah.
You are into jets. What got you into flying jets?
Well, I always felt that I could fly.
Okay.
Which was interesting. And then I realized I probably did need some help. So, but the reason I'm here today, I heard you talking a little bit about Calgary, and I've got a quiz for you today.
Oh, you do?
Do you like quizzes?
I love quizzes. And you know what? You, a quiz master in your own right, it's great to have you. What do you have for me? Fire away, John.
This is all about understanding Calgary and Alberta and some of its landmarks, including this first question that has to do with architectural.
Okay, architectural.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with it.
Downtown Calgary.
Yeah,
there is a very large structure that was built back in the 70s.
Yeah,
can you name that building? That structure?
Is that the Calgary Tower?
Actually, it's called the CN Tower.
That's the CN Tower.
Yeah, sorry, that's incorrect. So that is 0 points for you.
Okay.
Now the second one.
Yep.
The Calgary Flames are the ice hockey team in Calgary.
They are, and I love it when people say ice hockey.
Where was the first, here we go, where was the first building that they played in that it currently is not now?
Is that the Calgary Corral?
Hold on. Did you say Corral?
Yeah, I said Corral.
Incorrect. It is hockey rink. I was looking for hockey rink.
I That was my second guess.
Here's another tough one.
Okay. Not very good at these ones, John. You're stumping me.
Where do men kiss grandmothers and they wear sweatpants with good shoes?
Oh, I know this one. Edmonton. Yeah.
Oh, that is correct. That's a terrible effect, but that is correct.
Okay.
Also, the government that currently is in charge provincially.
Oh, no.
If you're from Calgary, how would you refer to this particular current government?
Well, you'd refer to it as crap, but
I'll accept crap. Crap is correct. There. Let me see if I can.
I was going to say NDP.
Here. Okay. This buzzer's not working. There. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
That's correct. So you were 2 for 2, which was, I think, pretty admirable.
Thank you.
Do you think the Calgary Flames will make the playoffs this year?
Yeah, I think they actually could challenge for that second spot. I don't know if they're going to win a division, but I think they're going to finish top 3, and I like what they've done with their roster. And you have to think, being a Flames fan yourself, James Neal and the signing of James Neal, that's really going to help the top line, won't it?
What's the name of the little fellow that does your technical stuff?
Russell.
Huh.
We call him the Rusty Bear.
Rusty Bear.
Loves massages, by the way.
I think I'd like to make out with him.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
John Travolta on Rock. Nobody's ever wanted to make out with Russell.
What do you make of that, Russell? That's pretty exciting stuff, right? Would you make up with John Travolta?
I mean, he is pretty famous.
Yeah.
I might not turn down the opportunity.
Good for you.
He's never said no.
Okay, and by the way, did I see something on the inside of your arm today?
Yes.
Yes, I did. Don't you dare try to hide from me. Can you show it? Can we go to the Rust Cam and will it show up?
It should.
And look it right there. Can you see it? It is a maple leaf tattoo on the inside of
Tavares
of the bicep. Does it have it? What does it say on it?
It doesn't have any words. It just has like the CN Tower and kind of like almost like a heartbeat or sky, like kind of looking both like a heartbeat and skyline.
But the CN Tower's in Calgary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, oops.
What an idiot.
Whose idea was that? Did your dad know?
My dad knows, yes.
Oh, you hid it from your mom. Mom doesn't know.
No, I actually hid it more from my dad than my mom.
Yeah,
so, but no, I came up with the design a few weeks ago and got it done yesterday. So,
well,
how much did that cost you?
Yeah, how much did that cost?
A little over $300.
Okay. Now, as the females in your life would ask, did it hurt? Did it hurt when they did it?
I
hope they don't talk like that.
A little bit, but it wasn't unbearable.
When you flex the pythons or the guns.
Yeah, when you're in the WWE and you're posing on the top rope, boom.
That's going to be like really impressive.
Yeah, it is. What are you going to call yourself when you're wrestling?
Yeah, do you have a wrestler name?
I don't. I didn't watch enough wrestling to
How about
come up with a
Rusty
name
W.
myself.
Bear? The W stands for what?
Is he a jobber?
He totally is a jobber.
With the unitard, like the one piecer, like that's got to happen.
Yeah, and the mask.
Oh, and the luchador, like the Mexican style. Very nice.
Conquistador.
Does anyone still wear that in WWE? Does anyone got that now?
Some of the Mexican luchadors will wear.
Was it?
Yeah, Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, he wore
actually, it's funny you bring him up because he's actually on the verge of his 17th comeback, and he's supposed to be back in the WWE in the next little bit. They're already talking about him. He's gained a little bit of weight, so when he's moving around, he's not flying off of ropes like he used to.
No, not nimble.
He kind of sits there and holds his back. And it doesn't quite have the same reaction as some of the high flyers used to be.
You're watching Raw Mike Richards either on the website or the dedicated YouTube channel or listening as a podcast in just a few moments here. Jerry Organ, the legendary Ottawa Rough Rider. And, to show you exactly how crazy it was, and I mentioned, that 1976 season. This is famous for two reasons. Number one, how the game ends, who throws the ball and who catches it. But in Saskatchewan, it is infamous because of the guy who gets beat on coverage, who actually was very, very good his entire career, Dave. But in the biggest of moments, and you have to remember Saskatchewan, this is Ron Lancaster, this is a legendary team. the guy who gets beat on coverage had a really rough time after this because, football is a religion in Saskatchewan. But what is interesting, and I didn't realize, is how the game comes to be this way. So this is, once again, on the old days of CBC, this is Old Exhibition Stadium. This is one of the bigger moments, I think one of the great finishes in all of the CFL games, and there's been a lot of great Grey Cup games. And I only saw this because I'm living in Eugene, Oregon at the time, and on CBS, their morning football show was Jimmy the Greek, Brent Musburger, Phyllis George. They show the last play of the game, which of course is the touchdown. But getting there is really quite remarkable, and taking a look at how it unfolded. And after that, we're going to talk to Jerry Organ, a member of this Grey Cup winning team.
1:28 left now. I don't remember ever, Don, in the history of a Grey Cup or any playoff action in the CFL where I saw 2 third-down gambles with just about a foot to go and both of them failing. For Brancato, it couldn't have come at a worse time.
Chewing ice.
He couldn't try the field goal. He's 4 points behind. He had to go all the way for at least the first down.
So, of course, Don Chevrolet calling it.
Not get it. So now Saskatchewan is 2nd down and 5 from the 6. Campana. No, he stopped.
And they don't get it. What you'll find interesting, too, is the clock, like for Americans, it barely moved. Also, in Tony Gabriel in setting up the field goal, he takes such a late hit. But back in the day, this was not considered to be any sort of flagrant foul. There certainly was no ejections. There wasn't even a flag, and you'll see it because it's coming up. There's Old Exhibition Stadium.
And the view from the helicopter high above C&E Stadium. Remember, this punt will go into the wind from McAreedy. And remember that Gary Brandt, number 54, the offensive center of Saskatchewan, has had trouble getting that ball back to punter Bob McAreedy. Myruck is in the shallow zone of the 30. Hadanaka and Green of the 40. The kick from the end zone. A good one by McAreedy. Out to Hadanaka. 35. That's it. Cleveland Van has him there at the 35 with 44 seconds remaining.
So quickly in this day and age, 44 seconds, I mean, you can still work it in the CFL with some clock. But see, it seems that they give them a lot of time, I guess. I don't know if the rules were different in terms of how long you had, but boy, oh boy, the clock does not move at all.
Nope, lots of time.
Tons of time.
Saskatchewan's defense.
But watch the hit that Tony Gabriel takes. No flag.
They trail 20-16. And you'd have to believe they'd be looking for Tony Gabriel in a situation like this, Don. Green, they have him wrapped up.
Okay, so there's the first play. He gets stuffed. Remember, Tony Gabriel was one of the key members in winning with the Hamilton Tiger Cats just literally 2-3 years before that.
When the team is sent back to the huddle, they are not going to huddle.
Look at the old Blue Jay seats that they put in, all those blue ones.
All right, time is in. Counting down from 40 seconds on 2nd down.
Watch this.
Gabriel coming across. He's open. He's got it.
Ooh.
First down at the 24-yard line.
that last little dive.
That's up too.
Helmet right into it. And they just get it like no one's complaining. It's the way it was played. Watch how late this is.
From that tight end position on the right side, exactly the same kind of play you saw a while ago when Cleveland was banned. Got hurt on the play. Gabriel had moved
play action.
To the 10-yard line. Clements is obviously just looking for his big tight end on that crossing pattern.
He's hit and
that's Richardson making the stop.
Helmet first too.
Yeah, exactly.
Saskatchewan has asked for a measurement. Here it is again. You see Gabriel going across the formation. Obviously the primary receiver.
Yep.
And it is a first down. 31 seconds.
There he is. We'll talk to him too someday too. Tony Gabriel's a good interview.
Gabriel, the Rough Riders of Ottawa, can reach the end zone in the final 31 seconds. They're 24 yards and 31 seconds away from a Grey Cup comeback victory. Gabriel is open in the end zone. Touchdown!
Unbelievable. What a player.
And the Ottawa fans and players are going crazy.
And there it is, one of the great all-time finishes. I am looking for Jerry Oregon. It's Raw Mike Richards calling from rawmikeRichards.com. Oh, did it bail out here? Okay. Oh, here we go. This is okay. We will try that again. But once again, that was one of the great moments. And of course, Jerry Oregon's team.
Yeah, two-time Grey Cup champion, 3 Grey Cup appearances. Only kicker in the history of the game, Mike, and this is interesting, to win the most outstanding Canadian award. That was back in 1973. He's 176 career CFL games. He's still the all-time leading Ottawa kicker, because we know there was many different Ottawa teams with the Renegades, a couple different versions of the Rough Riders, now the Red Blacks. But yes, Hall of Famer Jerry Oregon.
As we go live here, of course.
Good morning.
Hi, Jerry Oregon. It's Mike Richards calling from rawmikeRichards.com.
Hey, Mike. What's up?
Well, I gotta tell you, Jerry. I just showed, as you've probably seen it many, many times, I'm guessing, the Tony Gabriel catch from the legendary Tommy Clements. I still look at that as being one of the great moments in all of CFL, but certainly the Grey Cup games, because that team, the George Brancato team, that was an excellent squad you had that year.
Yeah, well, you gotta know more about football than that. You missed 2 of the best plays that preceded that.
Well, no, we did show the setup, including of course, the catch that Tony Gabriel comes coming underneath that Tommy hits him, and of course, this day and age, they'd be throwing flags. They'd be throwing flags at every play now, Jerry. The rules are a little bit different.
I know. I'm pulling your leg because the 2 previous plays I'm referring to was Bill Hattenaka's fantastic punt return as a rookie player with the Riders. And then a certain kicker named Jerry Oregon ran 52 yards on a fake punt in the third quarter to give us field position. But Tony's catch was fantastic, and I'll never forget it. It was fantastic.
Now, when you look back at that era of football and you look at how the game was played, Tommy Clements was always one of my favorites. He eventually goes to Hamilton, then of course over to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But it also was a time where I think, when I look at nostalgia, when I look at where you had some of the truly great players, where a lot of the, the stadiums at the time, they were all full. And that's really when I look back at the, if I'm calling it the Ottawa Rough Riders, the George Brancato, I think even Rick Casada, those kinds of names, that was a real special time for Ottawa football.
It was fantastic. I came in 71, and we weren't very good, but we were good enough, a very tough team, a very resilient team that won in 73. Not a lot of super talent, but we won the 73. But then in 76, of course, we had all the talent: Conrad Holloway and Tommy Clements and Tony, and we were loaded with offensive talent. And then in 78, guess what? In 78 we should have won the Grey Cup, but 78 Jerry Oregon retired and didn't participate in the final game. I took a year off, and the field goal kicker missed 4 field goals. Otherwise, we go to the Grey Cup and win it in 78.
Oh.
So it was a great decade. Just like the 60s, we would have had 3 Grey Cups in the 70s.
Well, and again, we mentioned Tony Gabriel, and I've had a chance over the years to get to know him a little bit. What made him so almost unstoppable when he ran a route that he was, it just seemed like he owned the moment, the route, whatever it was. If he wanted to get open, he was going to get open. What was it that made him, what was that intangible that made him so good?
Yeah, he was, I would say, tenacious. He was, first of all, his size helped a great deal. When he took a step, the defensive backs had to take 2. So, he was a big guy, big strides, big hands, totally unintimidated by anything, and so very courageous player, and he was just the heart of the team as far as his voice is concerned, because as you know, he's called the Gabber for a good reason. He loves to talk, and so no, he was a true performer, and even to this day, a couple of days ago, I was at a party for Peter Senison's birthday, and Tony Gabriel called, and wanted to talk to each of the players that were there, and he went on for like a half an hour. It's that's Tony Gabriel, and he's definitely a classic from the past.
No, definitely. Jerry, great to talk to you. David Bastel here. Good morning. I wanted to ask you off the top, just to kind of rewind things a little bit, but how does a guy that was born in England move to Canada and turn into this CFL legend, among other things? How did this all come to be?
Yeah, isn't it great, David? Hi, good morning. And everybody has a story, and mine is different, but just as relevant in terms of how to get to the CFL. So the very short story, David, on talking to your listeners this morning. I was a soccer player. I was decent. I played actually it was a team called the Toronto Colts, and in the Toronto Telegram one morning it said the Toronto Colts, Canada's soccer future in embryo. And it was too early for Canada. Canada wasn't ready to embrace the game back then, but so I was a competent soccer player. But I wanted to go to university, and long story short, I'll leave out all the stuff, but at 22, I was a freshman at the University of Guelph, terrible football player, and they gave me some opportunities to learn the game. And we didn't kick many field goals then because the offenses weren't that great. But I got a little bit of attention, but never got drafted from Guelph. And I was ready to move on with my life, with my wife and my son at the time, and ready to move on. And all of a sudden, Frank Clare apparently called Garney Henley and said, "What's this Oregon kid like?" And Garney said, "Well, hey, I take him to Helm, but I don't want him competing with my best friend, Tommy Joe Coffey." So I was basically a walk-on, if you like, with the Riders, and I was ranked about 80th out of the 80 guys that were there. They didn't even know my name or my position when I showed up. This was an inauspicious beginning, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, long story short, in the inter-squad game that year, black versus white, in terms of color sweaters, I caught 3 passes for 111 yards from Rick Casetta, kicked 3 field goals, and my name was blazoned across the headlines of the sports page the next day, and I was launched as a professional athlete. Yay!
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, back in those,
crazy.
Because I think Tommy Joe Coffey, I think his last year, I believe he was 87. Was he? Tommy
Yes,
was
he
young in his
hung
life.
around a long time.
Yes, he did.
And he was a kicker. He was a toe kicker, like Mo Racine had been. And but Garney felt, if I take it to him, Coffey's never going to speak to me again. But anyway, it was great. And and I went on to be MVP 71, 72, All Canadian 73. It was just a ridiculous change in my life that I never anticipated, never expected.
So this, to you, it's interesting because I've never heard this perspective on your career beforehand. We just assume that someone goes athletically to whatever university it is. They try to hone their skills at that level and hopefully get drafted and then go on, move on. So you didn't believe any of this was your path?
No, I didn't even desire it. Actually, I had no desire to be a professional football player. I just was playing because it was a nice thing to do while you're hopefully getting your degree. Although when you're playing football, you don't have a lot of time to prepare for those exams. But I was on my way to take an MBA out at University of Edmonton, and I had no concept of playing professional football. I had, the culture in England is not football, and I hadn't adopted to that. So it was a great surprise, and it happened so quickly. I really feel, God had a great deal to do with it, because all of a sudden I have profile, and people want to hear this Christian football player speak all over Canada.
Well, and that's why I sort of bring that up in, you being a person of faith, that sometimes we know that there is a sort of preordained path that you're not aware of, but somebody else has all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah,
and
correct.
this was part of what your path was to be, so you could spread that message, and this became a vehicle for that. Therefore, I think when you are a person of faith, I think you look back on it and say, even though you didn't particularly plan that, somebody else did.
Yeah, it seems that if I'm going to have that kind of a relationship with God, then God seemed to orchestrate it so that I would have a platform. Because prior to that, of course, there was no platform for me. I I wasn't called to be a pastor, but as an athlete, you know, it was quite unique in those early days. It wasn't unprecedented, but it was unique. And Lori and I got to travel, all around North America and around the world, actually, as a result of my faith and my football.
Now, Athletes in Action, were you a part of that initially?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, that's a great issue too, because I came to faith in '73, and in '74 I was at Teen Ranch in Orangeville with a group of guys forming the beginning of the ministry called Athletes in Action, and it was very prominent in Ottawa for years. And Wayne Tosh and Rod Woodward and I were the key figures, and Athletes in Action is still very prominent in the league and still very prominent in Ottawa. So it was a great beginning, and that was 1974.
And right now, Jerry, currently you're working with One Way Ministries. How long have you been with this organization? And I see that you're still working with them today.
Yeah, I am. And One Way Ministries was actually inaugurated in about 20 years ago by another football player you might recognize, Larry Brune. He played in Hamilton, Ottawa, and I think he went out west to play for a couple of years. But he played with us for about 3 years, and he had this great passion, I guess, after football to do something significant, and he began the ministry called One Way Ministries as a ministry to pastors and other leaders in the city, and that's what we've been doing for the last 20 years. I've been with them on the board initially and then on staff all of those 20 years.
Oh, that's fantastic, Jerry. I also think that, speaking of fantastic, I love to see the revival of football back in Ottawa. The stadium is beautiful. They've got a team that's very, very competitive. The Red Blacks took a while to get used to that name. I mean, we're from Canada. I realize it's a small league, and we had two that were Rough Riders, but I was comfortable with that. What did you think of Red Blacks when the name came out?
I thought it was a joke, actually. No, I did. I thought they were going to throw that name out there so that people would reject it and then come back the next week with the real name. I really did. But you know what? Hey, it swings rather nicely now, and everybody's over it, so it's great. Nobody mentions it anymore. Well, I shouldn't say that. Anybody hearing it for the first time always look at you and say, "Pardon?"
Yeah.
Red, black. But it's definitely attached to a team now. It's a good logo. It's a great brand, and it's working fine now in the league. But wow, it was a real stretch in the early days for alumni to embrace it.
Jerry, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. Been a real pleasure catching up. And again, I saw a lot of the alumni at the last game that they showed, and there was Russ Jackson again. There's a very proud heritage and a great lineage, I would say, when it comes to football in Ottawa. I'm so glad it's back, and you were a big part of that. So thank you so much for joining us here this morning. It's been a lot of fun.
I just wanted to know that I was expecting you to call me and say we've canceled your program. We're going to talk to Duron Carter. But thank you for the privilege of just talking about my faith and my football career, and I've enjoyed it very much.
Thank you very much. We'll catch up again soon, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
Bye-bye. Bye now.
That is Jerry Organ joining us here this morning, and I realize, the phone line.
Yeah, the phone connection wasn't the greatest, but these are things we can't control.
What a great sense of humor.
Oh, he's a great guy.
I mean, we know these guys only by their name, the legends that they created back in the day, and there he was saying, I didn't even think football was even going to be a thing for me.
Yeah.
He goes, I didn't even know if I wanted it. Can you imagine?
The people nowadays.
What do you mean you didn't want it?
You never hear that story. Anybody you talk to that's in the NFL, CFL, wherever they're playing, they'll never give you this. I'm not sure if I really want to be here or not.
I don't know. Pro sports. I don't know. Wasn't it just a great perspective? And he talks about Athletes in Action, which, by the way, if you were depending on the town you were in. So all these guys, I remember Zen and Andrew Sishin coming to my high school, and these guys were all football players, but they play basketball. Okay. So they play basketball against your high school, and that's when the Christian athlete was. And again, as he said, back in those days, back in 74, 70, it was kind of new. And I think you saw a real splinter as time has gone on, where it became very divisive sometimes, where people just didn't want to hear about that it made people uncomfortable. And then, of course, there would be a lot of mocking that would go on that came with that, because sometimes those that espoused this great relationship with their God and the Lord would also be the guys to be found in a hotel room with a hooker or whatever it was. So there was some difficulty, and there was some, I think, a little bit of a pushback on that. But those that were sort of pure of heart, they were really great guys, did a lot of good work. And are you going to tell me guys like Pinball Clemens isn't maybe the best example of any human being I've ever known?
How true is that?
I mean, I don't know really anybody of any position, of any stature, whether it be physically or economically, that brings more about just the love of humanity than Pinball Clemens. I mean, he really is remarkable. And again, one of those guys, he meets you once, he's probably going to remember when he meets you again, probably your name and probably the name of your dog.
So true.
He's just one of those guys.
So true. There's very few people that are like that. I would put Pinball in that category. I would put Jerry Howarth in that category.
100%. Jerry Howarth.
Just knowing the encyclopedic mind of these two individuals, and just going, oh, this is associated with this, who is married to her, who is, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have the conversations with these type of people, and they're very rare. And it's like you've talked to them every single day of your life.
And we talk about the selfless acts, those that are in a city or town who have made their money elsewhere and then give back. I'd also put Tony Spallettini in Calgary in that category.
100%.
Of Spalumbo. What he has done for high school football in Calgary, the money raising activities to get the fields and that field turf that is so amazing. Tony was a big part of that, and also been a very good friend to that city. So I also put Spally up into that category. And, again, looking at football, where we stand right now, I mean, I think that the CFL right now is not the way I actually thought the league would turn out. I thought it'd be a lot more competitive because there have been a lot of blowout games. But I'll go back to, so when I'm watching Johnny Manziel and saying the same thing as I said to my neighbors who are all Argo fans, I go, Johnny Manziel should be in Toronto. I don't know, and we don't know, maybe there was an offer, and maybe it just wasn't enough on the table for Hamilton to pull the trigger on that, nor want Johnny Manziel to go down the QEW and play in Toronto. But for the league's sake and for their team, I still think that Johnny Manziel should have ended up in Toronto. I really do. I don't know how aggressive it was, because it could have been a possibility. We're just unaware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wouldn't matter how many games the Argos win. It's about a gate-driven league, and theirs is just leaking water all over the place. It's a little scary, if you ask me, that situation.
It's massively scary, just because of you watch any game in Toronto and there are more empty seats than people in it. And that's the worst part of it.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
No, I was going to say, as someone who doesn't really watch the CFL that often, if Johnny Manziel was the Argos quarterback, I'd probably sit down and watch a decent amount of Argos games.
Yeah, I think people would. And if they start winning, it becomes a story.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden you get ESPN back into the mix, but it just didn't happen. By the way, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, when did that happen? Is this just breaking news?
You're telling me news that I don't know of.
Okay,
and
well,
I don't know if I want to hear it, because I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, sad to announce the passing of longtime colleague. This is from B. Brian Blair at Killer B.
Former tag team champion.
The passing of Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Thoughts and prayers for the family are deeply appreciated. So this, I guess, is just coming across as we see it. It
is actually just looking at some of the wrestling feeds that I trust. It has happened. And you know what? It's funny. He was still working to this day, off and on different shows. He's the father of, they call her Natalia on WWE, former women's champion, and arguably one of the greatest tag teams in the history of wrestling, the Hart Foundation, with Bret the Hitman Hart and, of course, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, their manager. Really, yeah, you kind of caught me off guard, Mike. 63 years old, and Jim Neidhart has passed away.
That is too bad. You mentioned Bret Hart. The time that I get it, and when I do get a chance to speak with them in Calgary or the traveling, I mean, you start to realize just how family oriented that business can be sometimes. almost to the point where I know people talk about nepotism, but really it's almost like when you travel with the circus, you're a circus family. I think wrestling is the same way, and a big part of that, obviously, when you just mentioned Bret Hart, the Hart family, Hart Foundation, and so yeah, I would say that news of this today, if you're just getting this now, it's Jim the Anvil Neihart. You said he was 63.
63 years old.
63. Yeah. Also coming up before we get to the end of the show, I wanted you to play this. This is really quite extraordinary. Do you ever go to, you see the internet and it's just flooded with little kids, right? Little kids doing these amazing things, whether they're playing the guitar, playing the drums, doing whatever. But I've never seen one play classical music with a gigantic orchestra. This is a 3-year-old, by the way. The 3-year-old, he's sitting behind a drum kit, for those of you who are listening and can't see it. The orchestra is behind him as his dad sits behind him. This is a 3-year-old playing a classical song. I always think this is like, I don't know if it's French, like the can or whatever this is. Get a load of this at 3 years old with an orchestra. Oops. When you drop your stick at 3, it's a long way down. And sadly, Russell's just looking at it and he's just burning with jealousy. Yeah. Russ, he's only 3. Come on now. Don't compete.
Become best friends? Yep. You want to go do karate in the garage? Yep. It's
Would like to thank our guest today, the legendary Jerry Organ, who at one point told us not only to think about being a professional athlete, I don't know if I really wanted to be one. Under the category of sentences you'll never hear today. Number 71 from the University of Guelph. I still think the Stamps are going to win this thing hands down. I still don't think.
Looking good. Tough test this weekend against Saskatchewan Roughriders, but could be a perfect season.
Yeah. And there's no hatred there. No, they all get along. Remember to subscribe.